This week in electric car, it's the MG4. When I first saw this car, I was not particularly excited about it. If you take away the pretty bits, the headlights at the front and the sticky addy taillights at the back, you're left with a pretty ordinary family hatch. However, when you look at it from the side, the front is extremely short, as is common for electric cars, because there's no gubbins to account for. But have a look at the back. This SAIC Vision lighting systems, that we don't need that. This has got a tow bar, can you believe it? But if you took away that whole lighting assembly, this would be pretty plain at the back. Although I do kind of like the fancy, whatever they are, spoilers at the top. Then there's another thing I don't like. You may not be able to see it in the film, but there are these lights that come up in these bizarre patterns all over the back of the car. It's kind of unnecessary and it looks a bit twee. They're very, very red at night. The boot is a manual affair, and we've got the filming bag in there, plus a whole bunch of charging cable and accessories bags. That takes up the entire floor of the boot. And you can see the back seats are down, which leaves a little lip, and none of these go above that lip. I guess that's okay, isn't it? If you're wondering why we haven't done more outside, it's because we can talk about it all from in here. Outside it is 38 degrees and it is bloody hot. Inside they've given us a fairly Spartan cabin. I mean, if I'm being honest, it's got everything in it that you possibly need. There's not a lot in the way of buttons. That's gone the way of many new cars. Most of it is in the screen. There's a couple of buttons here on the steering wheel. The main buttons, the toggles, are not well defined. They're not listed, they're not labeled. They've just got arrows. The only one I recognize is the speech button, which works quite well. I want to talk a little about the instrument cluster. That small, sort of motorcycle sized, a little bit like a Polestar, actually works very well. There's all the information on there I could possibly need. Over here, a infotainment system with just a couple of buttons along the bottom: volume, home, hazard flashes, rear demister, front demister, and on and off for the climate control. Down below that is a free-floating sort of island console, and it's got the gear lever and the park button. Auto hold with this is always on. You just have to press your foot down, sort of like Mercedes-Benz. Let's get underway. Oh, there's a couple of cup holders down below, which, by the way, I have a coffee in. Would you believe, on a 38-degree day? Before we move off, I just want to mention this accessory mat. Underneath that, there is quite nice, fairly soft vinyl. But to protect it, and as an accessory, they've given us this mat which has got a cutout for the airbag, but all of the cutouts, they're not edged, so it looks a little bit rough. It's now asking me, it's saying the system is ready. The reason that I left my bag inside is so that the air conditioning would stay on. The system is a little bit foreign to me, and you can see that it's quite slow to no, it's not gonna, yes, it's quite slow to respond. The other thing is that I do have CarPlay, but I got a new phone on the weekend, so the connection that I did have with this last week went away, so I've had to reconnect that to Bluetooth. But even when I connect this, there's no CarPlay. It says to connect. If I go to CarPlay, it says connect mobile phone to USB. What's it say? Check mobile phone setting. I've done all that, and there's two USBs down here under this floating bit. I've tried them both and neither work, so clearly I'm doing something wrong. Never mind. I've got 74% of battery left. with 309 kilometers. I think that's pretty good going. MG has gone the way of brands like Tesla and others that don't have a key as such. And when you go to start it, you just put your bum on the seat and it brings the system to life. Now, this is in normal mode. That's a fairly relaxed takeoff. The system also has all of the ADAS features that are now required. Coming up to a tight corner. The handling it's more than adequate. Because when I tell you the price, you'll be really surprised. MG has been positioning itself in the market. It's just decided that the prices are going to be whatever the prices are going to be. Profitability for the time being doesn't seem to make much of a never mind. We had the Nissan Leaf for a long time. It was pretty much the only electric car on the market, and it was starting in around 50,000, if not a little bit more. This was starting under $50,000. In fact, it was starting under $40,000. And for last month, the base model was $30,000 drive away. They can't have been making any profit on that, surely. You can see we're going around that corner quite well. I want to show you something else as well. Let me just go into, I think it was navigation. On the way up, I'm just going to put that on cruise control. I had, I don't know where the hell it was. I'm going to have to stop again. That's the other thing with screen-based infotainment systems. They're really hard to use on the go. Okay, more settings, map preferences, alert preferences. Alrighty, so I had road safety alerts and traffic cameras on. What I discovered was, and it was purely by experimentation because it isn't anywhere that I could find, what it was doing was bonging every time I changed suburb. So it was giving me warnings about other things as well. But why on earth would I want to know when I change a suburb? On the highway it was annoying, and the chime drove me absolutely potty, so I turned all the volumes down and the chimes down. And it still didn't stop, so I had to turn the red light camera warnings off and all of the other warnings off, and eventually that stupid suburb thing just went away. Why? And why not just have a silence button on the navigation that when you press that, it silences the navigation, and you can have another button that says silence alerts. Okay, now I'm up to 110. Press the button. Rightio. Now, the fancy cruise control does seem to work reasonably well. However, the lane control just doesn't seem to be keeping me. I'm going to turn that off for the time being. My week in the MG4 has made me feel like it's a car that I have to drive. It doesn't feel like I'm driving a laptop. When you come down to an intersection, the side cameras come up. You don't expect that in a car at this price point. It's pretty impressive. If it sounds like I've been a little bit negative, it's only because there are things in it that annoy me, and once something annoys a driver, you microfocus on it. And no matter what you do, you can't unfocus. It's the elephant in the room thing. And that's all for the MG4. It's an unexpectedly good car. In fact, I didn't know what to make of it, if I was going to be perfectly honest, when I first saw it. But now I've driven it, and I quite like it. As always, hit like, leave a comment, and just over there to subscribe.